How to write a brand story is a question that most businesses need to grapple with sooner rather than later in their journey of creating predictable business success. Neuroscience proves that storytelling is the best way to capture people's attention, bake information into their memories, and forge close personal bonds. But how do we do that for a business brand? How do we, through brand stories, go beyond the you buy, we sell principle and open the door to connect authentically to prospective customers? In this episode, we'll look at what is a brand story, how do you create a brand story examples, what should a brand story include, how can you tell if a brand story is any good, and a whole lot more. Now, let's dive into it.
Hi, my name is Ben Baker. My company is Your Brand Marketing, and welcome to the Predictable B2B Success Podcast. My company is all about internal communication. What do? We engage, retain, and grow your employees, build better leaders, and help communicate your value both inside and outside the company. Our job is to help you build an effective brand story, something that everybody can understand, something can relate to, people can recall, and people can retell. It's all about getting people to feel that what they do and why they do it matters inside the company, be able to add value, provide better customer experience, and therefore better customer loyalty. Over to you, Vinay.
Excellent, Ben. Thanks so much. Great to have you on the show. I'm curious, Ben, you've got quite obviously a wealth of experience behind you, but what would you say is your personal area of strength?
My personal area of strength is to sit there and say, how do we make the complex simple? I've always been a big believer of saying, how can we take something that looks overwhelming, complex, and just seems to have so many moving parts, and be able to bring it down to its basic components? How do we explain something in such a way that people are going to understand it, and they're going to relate to it, and they're going to be able to retell the story in their own way? So that's really what I work on, to make the complex simple. And that tends to be a lot of my superpower.
Certainly. An essential skill, I would think. But in your opinion, in that area of strength, what is something that businesses don't know but should?
You know what? A lot of companies, when it comes to employee engagement, overcomplicate things. They truly do. They sit there and say, well, we're going to try this, we're going to try this, we're going to try this, we're going to try this. We're going to look at doing this way. We're going to create a health and wellness program. We're going to put foosball tables in. We're going to have free beer Friday or pizza Wednesday or whatever. When all employees really want is to be listened to, understood, and valued. If we can just listen to our employees, understand, what is important to them and value them, and let them understand how they are important to the team and how what they do matters, it's amazing how much better we can engage our employees.
Certainly. And would you say that employee advocacy, it's a term that's being bandied about these days, but is it a subset of internal marketing, or would you say it's somewhat different?
Well, I really think that, companies, depending on the size, need to have a chief customer experience officer that is looking both internally and externally. Somebody who's sitting there looking at the brand going, what do we really do? Why do we do it? Who do we do it for? What's the value that we add? How do we treat our employees? How do we empower them? How do we give them the tools necessary to make our customers' lives better? There needs to be somebody within the company, and I don't know if it's the CEO, if it's a VP of customer experience or whoever, but you need to have somebody that can take a look at the company and say, how do we take care of our customers? And our customers are both inside the company and outside the company, and be able to communicate effectively. What's the direction that we're going? Why are we doing what we're doing? And where are we heading towards? What's the goal that we're moving towards? And how does everybody matter along those lines? So I think that's what really needs to happen within organizations. And that really doesn't happen within organizations. Most companies market externally, but they never let people know internally why they do what they do. And I think it's the why you do what you do is vital to the success, both for customer advocacy and also internal customer advocacy.
On the face of it, it seems to make a lot of sense as a, it's sort of the bread and butter type of stuff that you ought to do within a company. But I guess a lot of organizations are very focused on the dollars and numbers and things of that nature. Are you aware of any statistics or numbers that prove that having an internal marketing program or someone looking at the experience of employees within the company and bringing them on the same page pays dividends in the long run?
Yeah, I mean, here's four statistics to look at. Inc. magazine says that 70% of employees are disengaged to one extent or the other. Either they're, I hate the company I work for, down to, I don't really care. 50% of employees today are out there either actively or passively looking for another job. Yep. In the U.S. economy alone, that's costing about $450 to $550 billion a year in lost revenue. And on an employee and a company basis, every employee that you lose, every employee that you have to replace costs you $100,000 from the minute they leave to the minute you get the new employee up, trained, onboarded, involved in the culture, and ready to go. It's $100,000 for that process. So we're talking far more than a nice to have.
Yeah.
If you lose 10 employees a year, that's $1 million off your bottom line, let alone all the residual effects.
Yeah, certainly. And you talk a lot about a brand story and creating one for yourself personally, and certainly it being vital to a company as well. Could you elaborate on that? Why is creating this brand story so very important?
Yeah, let's focus on the company first. Too many organizations have mission, vision, value statements that nobody knows, nobody can remember, nobody knows what they mean, and nobody can recite them. And that's a problem. There's 6 pithy words and a couple of sentences that some people made up in a boardroom, thought they were a great idea, thought they were wonderful, power words, but nobody lives them. A brand story takes the value of the mission, vision, and value statement and turns it into a story format, because we as people relate to stories. We all relate to stories. We all sit there, and when somebody says, you know what, let me tell you about this, and then they go into a story, people lean in and they listen and they internalize it. They sit there and say, how does this affect me? My book, Powerful Personal Brands, is full of stories from my life. It's lessons that I learned and the things that I got out of it, and why I do what I do. But when you get back into the brand story, it's, where did you come from? What was the genesis of the company? Why was the company started in the first place? Where are you today? What are the challenges and what were the opportunities that got you from your genesis point to where you are today? Who do you serve? Who's your customer? Who's your customer really? What do you do for them? What do you do for your customer? What makes you different from your competitors? How do you add value? How do your employees matter within that situation? And more importantly, where are you going? Because if you can turn all that into a story of where the company has been, where it is, and where it's going, every single employee can not only remember it, they can recall it, and they can retell it in their own way. They may not remember the exact story in the exact order and every single word, but they've internalized it. And when they internalize it, all of a sudden it becomes part of the culture. You go into a meeting and you sit there, somebody says something, and you say, well, wait a second, that doesn't align with our culture. That doesn't align with our brand story. Why are we doing it? And it saves companies from going off on these tangents of doing things that are the bright, shiny object things, but have nothing to do with your core values and have nothing to do with your core mission statement. Yep. And if everybody aligns with that, from the CEO all the way down to the people who do the shipping and everybody in between, people sit there and say, what I do matters because I know that it aligns with the brand story. I know that it aligns with the mission and vision of the company because I know what those mission and vision of the company truly is. And on a personal level, it's the same thing. Leaders need to have their own brand story. They need to have their core. What do they believe in? Who are they? What's the value that they believe in? And what are the things they're willing to stand for? What are the things they're going to stand against? Because that's how you build trust. That's how you build relationships. That's how you build great teams. Because people know who you are. They know the value that you bring, and they're willing to stand beside you and work with you to be able to help those objectives get moved forward.
Certainly. And would you say that in the same vein that it's not just leaders that probably need a personal brand story, but as you look to recruit and hire people, you should really be looking for resonance with potential employees' brand story to ensure both a culture fit as well as the ability to have the motivation, not the ability, but the motivation to keep pursuing in whatever job they're in.
I think that everybody needs to have an understanding of who they are, what they do, and why they do it. Because whether you're looking to get hired, whether you're looking to get promoted, whether you're looking to go become from a VP to a C-suite, whether you're, talking to a customer, whether you're putting together a marketing plan and you're advocating for a budget, it's all about trust. And people trust people. People work with people. People believe in people. And unless somebody trusts you, unless people know who you are, they're not going to trust you. If you are that consistent person, say, you know what, we always know that Vinay does this. We always know that we can rely on him to do this. What he says he's going to do, when he says he's going to do something, he always follows up. He always lets you know what's going on. He's always makes sure that the people that work for him are taken care of. He's always out there helping lead the charge and rally the troops. People respect that. That's what we need to be hiring for. Whether somebody can program in C++ or whatever language, you know what? Those languages are going to change. Those hard skills are going to change. What we programmed in 5 years ago is different from what it is today. It's different from where it's going to be in 5 years from now. The things that you want people that are reliable. You want people that can be articulate. You want people that are problem solvers. You want people that can extrapolate. Those are the things that you want. And if you can show that those are part of your personality, those are part of your brand and your brand story, that's going to take you far, because people are going to sit there and say, that's the person I want to have on my team, or that's the person I want leading my team.
Sure.
Or that's the person I want to be married to.
Certainly. And how would we go about putting this together, this brand story? I mean, there's a lot of conversation around the hero's journey in terms of building a brand story. Is that what you would recommend, or is there a simpler formula to it? How would you approach it?
I always love the brand story, and for people who don't know the hero's journey, people who don't know the hero's journey, think Lion King. We've all seen Lion King, whether we saw the digitally remastered version or we saw the original. We all understand that our story is not just about the highlight reel of our life. It's about the highlight reel and the things that have got us there. Everybody has low points. Everybody has challenges. Everybody, runs into a brick wall. It's how you find your way around that brick wall, or over the brick wall, or under the brick wall, or however you do it, that makes you interesting. That's part of your tapestry. It's saying they're going, you know what, I had this challenge and I learned from it, and because of it, I was able to do this. You don't have to tell people that, I was a raging alcoholic for 12 years, but you can sit there and say, you know what, I had some health issues and I overcame the health issues, and these are the things that I learned. It's a matter of sitting there going, you have to be authentic, you have to be real, but you decide how much of that you really want to share. That's up to you to decide how much you want to share. What, more or less, that's on your own personality. But I find that when we're authentic, when we're real, when we show part of our vulnerability and the things that we learn from them and the things that we overcame and the things that we were able to achieve because of the stumbles and the falls, that makes us more relatable. That makes us more interesting. That makes people sit there and say, okay, their life has not just been a highlight reel. If I put their feet to the fire, they're not going to go running the opposite direction because they've already had their feet to the fire.
Certainly. Are there specific aspects to crafting this brand story using the Hero Journeys formula that you feel businesses or even leaders often make a mistake with?
I think that they try to, the biggest mistake people do is try to do too much of a highlight reel.
Right.
They try to just sit there and say everything is perfect all the time. It's sunshine and rainbows 24/7, 365.
Yeah.
And when you do that, you're not believable. Nobody believes that everybody's life is perfect. Everybody has challenges. Every business has challenges. Every person has challenges. As I said, you don't have to go into the minute detail of we almost became bankrupt, and we couldn't pay our bills and we had to lay off half the people. But you can say we had some financial challenges, and this we were able to overcome it by doing this, and this is what we learned from it. It's a matter of putting your brand story in a way that shows that you can overcome and you can achieve. And to sit there and say, you know what, we are who we are today because we believe in this, and these are our values, and this is how we treat our people, and this is how we treat our customers. These are the type of problems we solve. These are the people we solve them for, and this is what differentiates us from our competition. That are the things that make a really good brand story when you're looking on a corporate side. It's this is where we came from. This is where we are today. This is what makes us who we are today. And by the way, this is where we're going. Do you want to come with us?
Yep.
And it's that, do you want to come with us? And all of a sudden people go, yeah. I bought in because I've listened to this brand story. I got where you are. I got where you've been. I see that you got through troubles, and I see that you're heading for that beautiful sunrise. I'm with you. I want to go with there. I'll paddle in the boat with you. And all of a sudden, that's how you rally the troops, both inside the company and externally.
Certainly. It raises quite a few questions in my mind. The first one, let's say you've got a great brand story. How would you use that? It's one thing to put it on your website in whatever format to attract the right sort of customers. How would you use the same story on a platform like LinkedIn in order to, again, draw the right sort of people?
And I think it's taking the elements of the brand story and bring them out in snippets and vignettes. It's creating those series of vignettes.
Right. Okay.
And I think that LinkedIn stories are coming. Facebook stories are there. Instagram stories are there. And if we look at it as the vignettes of our life, and be able to move that people through the series of vignettes, then all of a sudden they have a much better view as they look back from the forward. And the same thing is when you're bringing new employees on board, the onboarding process is huge. Onboarding can't just be a day, or it can't be just sign on the dotted line, here's some business cards, there's your computer, you're onboarded. It has to be part of your brand story. You're telling the brand story, letting people know what the brand story, having them ask questions about it, putting them in a mentorship position with a mentee position with somebody for a week or a month or 2 months, depending on the job that they're in, to be able to have them ask questions and be able to keep going back to it and say, well, I didn't understand this part, or what did you mean by this, or how does this relate to this? And being able to sit there and realize that people are not going to get it the first time. They have to chew on it. It's like advertising. The first time you see an advertisement for something, you probably ignore it. It's not till the 7th, 8th, 10th, 12th, 15th, 20th time that you sit there and go, oh, maybe I should take a look at that car. That looks kind of cool. I'd never seen that before. But you've seen the advertisement 20 times before. You've just ignored it.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with employees. When it becomes part of the culture and part of the ongoing process, part of meetings, when it becomes part of group settings, whenever you have town hall meetings within the company, whatever, the vignettes of the brand story come out, and we allude to the brand story, and all that's important.
Certainly. Would you say that once you have your brand story, it's done and dusted, or do you need to revise it on an ongoing basis? Also, do you need to have I mean, your story continues to evolve. So how do you introduce all that's happening in the not in the present, but in the recent past, so that people become more aware of all that's happening with you and your company,
Yeah.
and bring it into the real world or the modern world or present world?
It's like a brand. I look at a brand as a living, breathing thing. Brands change. Brands evolve. Look at Apple. Apple of where it was in 1984 versus where it is today. The underpinnings of the company of innovation, creativity, being that red velvet, type thing that only the lucky few are going to be part of because they believe in the elegance of the Apple brand.
Yeah.
They're the ones who get it. But where the company has gone since 1984 is a complete story unto itself. And how the company has evolved. And almost any company that's been around long enough is going to evolve. And you just have to realize with those milestones, whether it's the 3-year milestones, the 5-year milestones, the 10-year milestones, and to have people within the company, whether it's your chief marketing officer, your VP marketing, or if you have somebody who is actually a branding officer, who is the keeper of the brand story, and is looking at it saying, how have we evolved? How have we changed? How have our customers changed? How has our product offering changed? How do we deliver? Do we deliver things the same way that we always have? And be able to evolve that story as it comes up. It's not something that's going to change daily, but as the company grows and as the company evolves, and as you go from 25 employees to 100 employees to 500 employees to 10,000 employees, it's going to evolve. But if you have that brand story, it allows each new employee to be able to have something to hold on to, and that becomes the culture of the company.
Okay. Yep, certainly. Would you say also that once the brand story is done as an ongoing part of the evolution of experience and the evolution of your brand, you could apply the same principles of creating a brand story, but now make the customers your hero to tell a version of your brand and your brand
Absolutely.
story?
I mean, your customer is always your hero. I mean, your customer is always your hero, because any good company realizes that, the overwhelming statement should always be, how does this affect our customer?
Okay. Yeah.
How does this impact our customers, and are we making our customers' lives better? And if you are constantly thinking along those lines, then every department within the company's vision is, how do we work together to make our customers' lives better? Because let's face it, they're the ones that pay the bills. They're the ones who are your advocates for the brand. They're the ones who are out there telling your story to others. And if you're not wowing them on a regular basis, if they're not the hero of the story, then they don't have a way for them to be involved in that story. So they need to say that, how am I part of this? How do I belong to this brand? How do I relate to this brand? How do I connect to this brand? Because people want to connect. People want to sit there and say, I'll use brand X versus brand Y because I have some type of affinity to it. Some people use Crest toothpaste, some people use Colgate toothpaste. They virtually do the same thing. They really do. When it comes down to it. But some people are dyed in the wool and would never buy anything but Colgate, and some people would never buy anything but Crest. And there's a reason for it, because they have an affinity to the brand, and they believe that brand is helping to make them better.
Certainly. Would you say that the brand stories are also driven by personality?
I would say brands can be driven by personality. Perfect example, a company that we're working with a few years ago, their CEO, right in the middle of a branding exercise, we were rebranding the company, moved on to a different company. Whatever happened, he got headhunted. He moved on to another company, and the chief marketing officer I wanted to says no, we need to continue on with the brand. I said, we can't. I says, we can't move on because whatever we create, whatever we do, as soon as you hire a new CEO, they're going to want to put their stamp on it.
Yeah.
They're going to want to put their individual thoughts and their individual, beliefs of where the company is going and the direction that they want to take the company. And, and that's the piece that's important, is that forward-looking piece of any brand. And we ended up putting that brand in the closet for 6 months while they, hired a new CEO, got his feet underneath him, and then we started having those conversations all over again. Right. And you know what? If we had just gone ahead with the branding as we had, we would have done a disservice, and we probably would have taken $200,000 worth of work and had it gone thrown in the garbage, because we would have had to start from scratch.
Yeah, certainly. But some people say a customer must buy into the story, not just the product. What would you say about that?
I would say that people buy products, they believe in brands. Products will change. Products will change. I mean, you take a look at Procter & Gamble for example. People buy into the Procter & Gamble family, but they don't look at all the they don't buy all the products, but they believe it. They believe in the brand. They believe that the brand is there and it's all about, is the brand going to provide healthy, safe products for me and my family? And that's what they believe in. They believe in the family of the Procter & Gamble. The actual products themselves, this year it may be this product, and that product may change 2 years from now. They may get rid of a product, they may change a product, they may change a formula, whatever, but it's the brand itself that people, believe in. The products themselves, if they believe in the brand, they'll buy the products.
Right. Okay. Who would you say are actually killing it with brand stories? I mean, you mentioned Apple, but in the B2B context, what comes to mind? What companies come to mind?
IBM for a long time had a really good brand story. Right. Dell has a pretty good brand story in terms of they're B2B and they're B2C, they're B2C. Yep. In terms of the B2B space, the one that I would say that doesn't have a good brand story, thinks they do, is Progressive Insurance. Give us 15 minutes, we'll give you 50. Give us 15 minutes of your time, we'll give you 15%. That's right. All that's doing is it's saying we're going to be cheaper. And all that's doing is saying, we as a brand are going to be cheaper. It's not saying anything about the brand itself. The only thing it's saying is that the brand will sell you something that's cheap. It doesn't say anything about quality, doesn't say anything about reliability, doesn't say anything about whether we're going to be there to take care of you. It just says we'll sell you something that's cheap. And I think that is probably one of the worst, brand positioning out there in terms of at least in the insurance space.
Right. Okay. How would you go about helping a company discover and create their brand story? And assuming that they've already got their mission and vision.
Yeah, I think it starts off with a series of conversations. The first thing that you need to do is to find out, is everybody within the company aligned? What we do is we go and we do a series of workshops, whether they're 2-hour workshops or half-day workshops or whatever, with various departments within the company. We sit there and say, okay, who are you as a company? What do you do? Who do you serve? Who are your customers? What value do you bring to them? And, what's your onboarding process? There's a whole series of questions that we'll ask, all the way from the C-suite all the way down to the shipping department. And what we'll do is we'll bring in a graphic recorder, and we'll get them to graphically record these conversations. And then we put them all up on the wall. And the question is, how similar or how different are they? Right. And 9 times out of 10, marketing, sales, finance, shipping, ops, whoever, the story is different. And then we need to sit there and say, okay, what's the story that you really want to tell? Yep. Where do you want to be positioned in 10 years' time? when you're not working for the company and you're sitting there and listening to somebody that's 30 years younger than you are, it says, you ask them, what do you think about brand X? What do you want them to think? What do you want them to say? And then it's developing that brand. How do we create that brand? And that brand has got to be authentic. It's got to be, who are we really? What do we really do? None of this airy-fairy stuff. It's, what do we really do? What are what makes us different from our competition? Where is our true intrinsic value? Who do we truly serve? And where do we really want to go? And it's a hard conversation. What are you passionate about as a brand? And stop saying making money.
Yeah.
Because money is a dividend. Money is a dividend. Money is just something that comes out. If you do your job and you take care of your customers and you take care of your people, the money comes. But that's all it is, a dividend. People, when they're building a brand or they're building a brand story, need to sit there and say, what is our vision? Where do we really want to be? And how do we want people to talk about us when we're not in the room? And that's a story we have to live.
Is that a conversation you have with the leadership or the board of directors, or is it a whole of company type conversation?
It's customers. It's a conversation I'll have with customers. I'll have it with vendors. I'll have it with C-suite. I'll have it with various people within various departments, and to sit there and say, get an amalgamated view, because the problem is we don't know what we don't know. Mm-hmm. And we all have blinders on. Yeah. And we see what we see from our viewpoint. And whether you're on the 15th floor, it's very difficult to see what's happening on the 12th floor. Mm-hmm. And it's very difficult to get this panoramic view of 360 to sit there and say, this is what really happens from in the company from a single chair. Nobody has all the information. So the more people we can talk to, the more ways we can sit there and say, asking key customers, why do you deal with this company? What intrinsic value do they have from you? Give me some stories that say this is how they've really supported you, and tell me some stories of how they've disappointed you. And look at things like that. Mm-hmm. And the same thing with vendors. Why do you deal with this company? Where do you think that you can add value to them, and how do they add value to you? How would you describe your relationship?
Right.
And the more honest we can be, the more we can paint a picture of what the brand truly is today. And then we start working about, here's where we are in the sand. Here's the line. This is where we want to go. Now let's start building the bridge.
Right. Okay. You mentioned you have these conversations with customers and vendors. Just from past experience, I know that getting them on the phone or into a meeting can be quite a challenge. What do you offer or do to persuade them to enter into a conversation which potentially has no real benefit for them?
It's interesting, because when you go to a company as a third party, mm-hmm. It's a lot easier for me to do it than for you to do it within your own company. Uh-huh. It's a lot easier for me to have that conversation, as it says, we're coming in to do a rebrand of company X, and they really value your opinion. Would you have half an hour to sit down with us? Because we're trying to make sure that we keep our key customers in mind as we're going through this branding process. Would you have some time to spend with us? I have yet to have somebody say no.
Wow. Okay.
I have yet to have somebody say no for years of doing this, mm-hmm. because if you put it in a position that you're trying to make their lives better, and what you're trying to do is figure out, how can we as a brand serve you better? They're always willing to open up. And it's a lot easier for them to open up to me than it is to open up to even a VP sales or VP marketing. Right. Because I don't work for the company. Mm-hmm. I don't get offended. You can tell me whatever you like. And I'll say that right in the meeting. I'll say, listen, you can tell me whatever I like. I says, I'm a third-party contractor. I do not get paid for the company. I am nobody's yes man. Mm-hmm. All I want to do is I want to hear the truth.
Sure.
And I'm not going to get offended by it.
Yeah, certainly. And I'm just thinking that really we're trying to bring people together around a common cause or a mission, so to speak, to ensure that we're on track on a regular basis. Would it make sense, therefore, to ensure that the touch points we have, either with customers or with vendors or other stakeholders, is very much in sync with what it is we're hoping to provide for people, both internally and
Absolutely.
externally? So does it make sense to map out the journeys to that touch point and beyond
Yeah,
basis?
I think that if we're not connecting, and I mean really connecting, not just sending out a digital survey saying, could you answer these 12 questions? Actually sitting down with our key clients every 90 days, we're doing our clients a disservice and we're doing our company a disservice.
So,
I think that you need to have something that's not product related, it's not service related, it has nothing to do with making money. It's having a real conversation with the client saying, how can we serve you better? And how are we doing? And here's where we are as a mission, vision, value company. These are the things that are important to us. Are we emulating that when at every touch point with you? And sometimes they'll say, it says, you know what? We called in on customer service, a couple days ago, and we got somebody, and they just didn't seem to really know your product line.
mm-hmm.
Really? Oh, okay. Can you expand on that? What was the situation? And it can be all of a sudden you've uncovered a training issue.
Yeah.
It's not a fault issue; it's a training issue. And by doing that, if this person has that challenge, then somebody else is going to have it as well. So I truly believe that having those touch points out to the customers to be able to do those check-ins is extremely important. Because it helps you be better. Because if you're not doing it, maybe one of your competitors is, and all of a sudden they're gonna uncover something that makes them more of a viable option than you are, and all of a sudden $2 million worth of business goes out the window, or $10 million.
Yeah. Correct me if I'm wrong, but this seems to be like a long-term and ongoing exercise. Is there something that businesses could do to get a few quick wins under their belt to take this back to, say, the others in leadership and say this is a worthwhile exercise to invest in?
Yeah, I mean, I would just start with the department. I would look at a department and a certain leader and sit there and say, okay, let's take a look at the policies and procedures and the focus and what's happening within this department. Let's just start small. Or one office. If you've got 50 offices, start with one office or one department within one office and test it. And test two or three. If you've got a couple of different theories, test one in one office and test one in a different office and see how it relates. How does it move forward with this? Whether it be different communication programs, whether it be different leadership training, whether it be a whole bunch of different things. It's find out what are the things that are the hot spots. What are the things that are causing us grief? As I tell people, I was just on a podcast a couple days ago, and I tell people your brand is only as valuable as your unhappiest employee on their worst day. So if all of a sudden you sit there and say we're having trouble in branch X, that we're not getting a lot of engagement, that we're getting a lot of surly people or this or that everything, okay, let's go in there and let's find out, why are these people surly? Why are they frustrated? Maybe it's policies, maybe it's procedures, maybe it's a leadership issue, maybe it's lack of training, maybe it's lack of empowerment, maybe they're not being communicated, what's going on at head office in an effective way, and they feel disenfranchised. There's lots of things that you can do on a very quick, very regional basis to be able to test things out. And if you sit there and say, wait a second here, all of a sudden people are happier. All of a sudden they're more engaged. All of a sudden customer service scores are going up. All of a sudden, we're getting less complaints, whatever. you realize that those little things are doing and say, okay, well, how do we take that and implement that across the country or across a division or across, whatever, so it's a matter of taking things as small incremental steps so they're not costing you a fortune to test something that, may be wrong and be able to move forward from there.
Okay, brilliant. Is there, this is obviously a very, very broad topic and we can spend hours talking about various issues, but given the lack of time, is there something I should have asked but haven't that we need to highlight about creating a brand story?
I think in terms of the brand story, I think that the key thing is to make sure that it's resonating with the employees. To check in with the employees, to sit there and say, okay, what is our brand story? Can you tell us our brand story? And sit there and say, can people actually tell it? Walk down the hall and say, what is our brand story? Where do we start as a company? What are our values? Who are our key customers? And you don't have to do the whole brand story, but you can just ask questions. Who are our top 5 customers and what do they do? And every employee in the company should be able to answer that question. And if they can't, then you got a bigger problem.
Right.
It's not that somebody's wrong. It's the fact that, wait a second here, if they don't know who our customers are and they don't know why they're important to us, we got a far bigger problem than somebody not knowing our brand story.
Certainly. Would you say that there's also a problem when people aren't necessarily reinforcing or reiterating the brand story in various touch points?
Yeah, I think it's ongoing communication. Yeah. I think it's the people want constant, and I hate to use the word attaboy and attagirls, but let's say attaboys and attagirls. It means a far more than a quarterly bonus or a yearly bonus or a 360 review that happens on a yearly basis. Those daily, weekly, monthly check-ins. How are you doing? What can I do? How can I make your job better? What are the challenges that you see? What are things that you think that we could do better? Is there something with a particular policy or procedure that's keeping you from being able to be effective in your job? And I think that as leaders, if we're constantly asking those type of questions of people, we'll be flabbergasted by the answers that we get because they've thought about it. They actually have thought about it. People sit there and say, well, I could do this better. And if you ask them and you give them their voice and you say, you know what, I'd love for you and you and you and you to, could you guys form a task group and report back on this and how that would work and empower them? Give them that leadership ability. Give them the ability to sit there and say, you know what, you are now involved in this. It's not just up to you to whine and complain about it. It is up to you to help fix this. And that way you're making people feel like they have a meaningful role within the company.
Certainly. Where can people head to in order to find out more and connect with you?
Yeah, the best place for people to get in touch with me is always my website. Everything's there. My consulting, my public speaking, my keynotes, my podcast, everything is there at yourbrandmarketing.com. It's yourbrandmarketing.com. Everything is there. My email's there, my phone number is there, my social media connections are there. Everything is there, easy access, so you can always get in touch with me. You can even book a free 30-minute consultation. If you have questions, go to the Get Started page, click on the free consultation, and you and I can jump on a 30-minute Zoom call and find out a little bit more about your company and see if there's ways that I can help you.
Excellent. Ben, thank you so much for doing this.
Hey, my pleasure. Thanks for having me on the show.